Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Thank you. I am going to share my screen, but I'll give it a second here to make sure that everybody who wants to be in the room gets in the room. In the meantime, please feel free to say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're coming from and or what you do in the field of grant writing and nonprofits. We also have my teammate Hannah Galgiani right here in the room with us. And she's going to be helping with links and things. So if you have a question, she will probably be able to answer it and put a link to something in there for you. And of course, this is being recorded. And as part of your purchase of this event, you do get the recordings. No way, Mary, you're in Oklahoma City. I moved from Norman, Oklahoma just 2 years ago.
I live in Norman.
No way.
I wish you were still here. I'd come and knock on your door. That's funny.
We could go out and get coffee. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yes.
wild. Sarah from Boys and Girls Clubs of North Georgia. Welcome, Sarah. Lindsay from Southern California, a grant writer and grant administrator. Double time right there. That's a lot of work for one person. Welcome, Lindsay. All right. If anyone else wants to share, I'd love to hear. Okay, grant writer manager from I can't talk Metro Detroit, Michigan. Welcome. Again, another person doing two jobs. Just want to acknowledge that a lot of people in here are probably doing that. And that is part of why we have been designing something over the last year and a half to help mitigate some of the stress and difficulties that folks have to deal with when they're not even doing two grant writing positions, grant management and grant writing, but even just doing one. And so this session is called How to Use AI to Streamline and Enhance the Grant Research and Writing Process. I really appreciate you all coming into my session. I am a practicing grant writing consultant for the last 10 years, working with a wide variety of clients all across the world. In addition to doing consulting work, I designed courses starting 9 years ago called Grant Writing Made Easy. Now we have Grant Writing Made Easier and Grant Writing Boss Club, which is for consultants specifically. And I've taught over 11,000 grant writers and nonprofit leaders across the globe just in those courses. So what we're going to cover today is why you need an AI grants system. So we're not just talking about using ChatGPT. We're talking about an AI grants system that does everything, that helps you manage everything. We'll talk about how to utilize an AI grant system and how to effectively start setting up your own system. And to me, this system is a tool that brings our vision in our business of equity, efficiency, and accessibility to life for organizations of every size. We built one for ourselves, we build them for our clients, and now we're going to share with you how you can build your own as well. Now, I'm not going to belabor the points, all of the challenges in grant seeking that we're dealing with in 2025. You know what they are, but I do want to note how this system can help alleviate some of the burdens that those challenges put on us. So we know that the nonprofit industrial complex favors well-staffed big organizations. Smaller orgs are often left behind because they can't compete because they don't have the time, the resources, the money to compete for grant funding that these big orgs do. And there's just reduced funding across the board, a trickle-down effect from the federal grants that were slashed and clawed back, and just across the board reduced giving. Now, who's competing for funding in the United States? 1.8 million nonprofits are all competing for funding, from grassroots to the giants. They're all chasing that same pool of dollars. Now, here's an interesting statistic that came out from Forbes. Every $8 donated in the US, for every $8 donated in the US, $1 goes to an organization on the Forbes 100 list. That's 100 organizations. That means a tiny fraction of nonprofits are capturing a massive share of the resources. So that is just 0.0068% of US nonprofits capturing 12.5% of all charitable giving. In addition to that, we have seen for so long how funding is concentrated at the top, but that's only part of the challenge. So another part is nonprofits are experiencing the power imbalance between funders and grantees within the relationship. So once they get the funding, funders hold the power and nonprofits are left navigating unreasonable demands and expectations just to access the resources that they deserve. And every nonprofit leader I talk to names this particular struggle: capacity. The competition keeps growing, but time and staff do not. And the result is that exhaustion, frustration, and missed opportunities that many of you probably are experiencing. So if competing demands and too few staff weren't enough, here is the kicker. Most nonprofits are working with outdated or no systems at all. And that creates a whole new set of struggles. So I want to do a quick check-in with you all, and you can just put a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the chat. When it comes to grants, what is your biggest challenge right now? I would love to hear from some of you. 1, is it writing compelling proposals? 2, finding the right funders? 3, keeping up with deadlines? Or 4, overcoming the federal funding chaos? Okay, so we've got a 2, finding the right funders, 3 and 4, 4, 2, absolutely. Well, what I want to share with you is that, especially with the advent of AI, winning grants isn't about writing more or writing better, because AI allows us to do those two things. Winning grants now is about strategy. And there are 2 ways that we need to think about this strategy. 1, we have to demonstrate strategy to the funders to get the funding. They have to see that we're not just making things up as we go along. They have to see that what we're proposing in the proposal relates to our strategic plan, relates to what we've been doing over the years, and we're not just making up new programs to scramble and get funding as opportunities are released. Then on the other side, internally, we need to use systems within our organizations to make that strategy manageable, okay? So let's talk about the first part of this: demonstrating strategy to the funders to get the funding. Funders reward strategic thinking, not just good writing. 72% require evidence of an organization's long-term planning in their proposals now. And 68% report a stronger interest in partners with demonstrated evaluation capacity and systems maturity. Why do funders care so much about this? Well, it signals you're ready for the grant, not just hoping. It also shows you know how to execute, report, and adapt. And it gives you the ability to forecast and scale your work with confidence. Now let's talk about the other side. You have to use systems to make that strategy manageable internally. So here is what some statistics tell us about the state of grant writing with AI right now. 24% of US nonprofits are using AI tools for prospecting opportunities, which is up from under 10% in 2023. Organizations leveraging AI and grant workflows report a 22% higher success rate on average. Now, I want to check in with you all and see what AI tools you're currently using within your work to improve productivity. It doesn't necessarily have to be for grant writing or grant research. It could be just, I'm using this to help me write social media posts. about our program or announce grants on social media. It could be about project management. Okay, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot. Yes, yes. So Copilot is integrated. So starting to get into that systemic use of AI. I love that. And I had been using mainly ChatGPT separately as a separate tool from everything I was doing up until last year. Now, back in August of this year, seems like ages ago, but it was just last month, MIT found that about 95% of generative AI pilots, so that's businesses, they're talking about businesses that implement AI to improve their business, fail to make a measurable impact on the organization's bottom lines. Only about 5% succeed in driving real results. The failure happens because projects are launched as one-off tools or pilots without being embedded in a larger system, without being integrated into workflows. Okay, so let's talk about that. The big problems that this MIT study found, there's no systematic integration into workflows, and the tools sit on the side. So many of these are siloed, the tools are siloed or treated as side experiments rather than embedded into business processes. Even good functionality can fail to generate value if people don't or can't use it in daily operations effectively. Governance, oversight, and adoption issues are another thing that the MIT research found were a problem that contributed to the failure of these. So not having clear processes, accountability, or measures of success. They also found that poor data infrastructure, weak data quality access or readiness. Many organizations just underestimate the cost and difficulty of cleaning, organizing, and integrating data. Also, data might be siloed, inconsistent, or insufficient for use cases. And when I'm talking about data, I don't just mean like numbers on a spreadsheet. I'm talking about things like your grant reports, your grant narratives. Everything that you create counts as data here. And then the last one is overhyped expectations. So leaders expect instant ROI instead of building sustainable adoption pathways. Okay, so inflated expectations can also lead to things like short timelines that really lead to disillusionment with the use of AI. So what MIT suggested that we do instead is to build systems. So AI is embedded into existing processes, not tacked on. Second, focus on workflow design. So make sure that how you're using it aligns with how staff actually work and that they're part of feedback loops and training. And finally, have strong governance. So establish clear metrics, leadership support, and realistic timelines. Now, all of these are wonderful in theory, but what happens when you try to put it into practice for your grant search and writing systems? Well, before this study even came out, we had already come out with a solution because we were noticing these same problems amongst clients, students, and ourselves with how we were using AI. So what we did was we created an AI grant system for ourselves. Now, I just want to get into this strategy development timeline a little bit, just to tell you kind of where we're coming from. So as soon as ChatGPT was released to the public in November of 2022, I was on top of that. I was shocked, I was amazed, and I said, I've got to learn how to use this and use it really well. By May 2023, I had created some strategies and training, and I started teaching how to use AI in grant writing. By 2024, we've realized that there was a gap, especially when a client came to us and said, we need a system that integrates AI to run all of our grant seeking efforts. And so we built that for them. And now in July 2024, we launched that system publicly. We call it the AI Grants Hub. I'll talk about it at the end. But what I want to show you today is how you can start building your own. Now, if you're like, Krista, what are you talking about? What is an AI grant system? It's a centralized structure to store, write, manage, and track every part of your grant seeking process and making it automated and accessible. So, just to paint a picture of what we used to be doing, so we can now compare it to what we're doing now. And I bet this is going to resonate with a lot of you. You're probably going to be like, yeah, this is what my process is like. Or maybe we have some things that you don't quite relate to, but you're like, yeah, the number of steps and softwares and documents and spreadsheets that I have in my process, it looks pretty similar. So when we get a new client, we always go through this process of getting them grant ready before we start applying for grants. So the first thing that we do when we get a new client, used to do, is we would set up a task list with deadlines, assigned people, etc., inside of ClickUp, which was our project management system, kind of like Asana or Trello. Then we would have a client intake questionnaire that would gather info and documents in Dubsado from the client. So they would upload a ton of documents here, answer a list of questions, and that would be our starting point for our work. This is in a separate CRM and invoicing system. Then we would copy and paste that info into a Google Doc. We would download all the docs from Dubsado and then upload them into separate Google Doc folders and organize them. And of course, we got to copy all of our templates into a new client folder. This is everything from our standard grant narrative template to our grant search and tracking template to MOU templates, just a ton of stuff. And then you copy it and then you've got to rename all of them, all of that in Google Docs. Then we would meet with the client, usually on Zoom, and record it and be transcribing it. And we would fill out their grant strategy. Now, what this looks like is we are asking them what specific programs, what specific expenses do they need money for, how much money do they need, how much have they already secured for it, and how much still remains outstanding from a submitted grant application. That way we can connect it to the grant search and see, which grants we need to prioritize to get each of these funding buckets filled. Then we would check items off the grant readiness assessment checklist and recommend next steps. Then we would conduct a grant search on Instrumental and export it in the reports section. Then we would do an additional search on ChatGPT and add new opportunities to that spreadsheet. Then we would reorganize the spreadsheet, add about 20 columns of information that doesn't get exported from Instrumental, but we're still pulling it from Instrumental and manually entering it from their funder profile. Then we upload that file into ChatGPT along with our grant analysis prompt to calculate what we call a likelihood of award percentage for each grant opportunity. That's what Rachel Fiedler-Canella was probably referring to as how we're doing this grant analysis with ChatGPT. Then we would manually add those numbers back into the original grant tracker spreadsheet. Then we would do a client review meeting. We would plan which grants to apply for when, for how much, and for which program. We suggest those things beforehand, but then we confirm with the client. Then we set up the task list with deadlines for each of those grants in ClickUp. Then we use docs, client website, and client interviews to start writing the standard grant narrative, which we had a template for in Google Docs. Then we open our AI prompts. And then, I think I skipped a part here. Yep, then we open our AI prompts and then we open ChatGPT and we put the AI prompts and then the information from the standard grant narrative in there, go back and forth between the two, copying and pasting, copying and pasting. And then, although that saved us time, still it's a lot of back and forth context switching and app switching. We put it in the standard grant narrative, revise it, work on it some more, gather client feedback, further info, and reiterate this process until we get it right. Just as a note, we're doing all this, recording meetings in Zoom, downloading the transcript, and copying and pasting relevant parts of that transcript into a meeting notes doc, another separate doc. Now let's say we get all that set up. The client is thrilled. They want to start with one of the grant opportunities. So we go back to that grant tracker spreadsheet and choose an opportunity to apply for. We set up a task list with deadlines, assigned people, etc., and click up. Yet again, another system. We copy and paste or download the RFP into a new subfolder in Google Docs within the in progress grants folder. We copy and paste. Oh, sorry, I already had that one. We copy and organize all the required attachments. So we copy each one, pull it over into that folder, and start a draft copy. We open yet another ChatGPT Convo, and we copy and paste the standard grant narrative text for the particular program we're applying for, if we're applying for a program. Plus, we use the AI prompts that we have of our own. Plus, we put in the RFP section by section, copying and pasting into ChatGPT. And trust me, I've tried doing it other more efficient ways in ChatGPT. So far, this is the way, even creating projects, this is the way we got the best results. Then we copy and paste section by section from ChatGPT into the Google Doc draft, revise, revise, revise. Typically, then we'll take the revision, put it back in ChatGPT, do copy edits, and then put it back in the standard grant narrative. So in all of that, there are about 10 separate tasks and almost as many softwares that we are using to gather info, project manage, write with AI, do an AI grant search, do an AI grant evaluation, take AI meeting notes, build a document database, do grant management, track our grant strategy, and do team communication. Like I'm exhausted just, just showing you that process. But we wanted something that put all of that in one place, but we couldn't find an existing software that did all of these things. And there's a lot of software out there, and some of them have a little bit of functionality. Let's say we've got a grant search software and it's got a little bit of functionality with grant writing with AI, but it doesn't have all of the things. So we decided to build our own system inside of Notion AI as a Notion AI template. Here are the 4 core powers of an AI grant system that we feel any system you build should have. The first is organization, knowledge management. So compiling all that information, organizing it in an effective way, not just in folders. Next is grant strategy and pipeline management. You remember that grant strategy table I showed you? We want something that's connected to all of the grant opportunities and how much funding we need in each category. We need something that writes with AI and doesn't require back and forth copying and pasting from program to program, and draws upon a knowledge base from up here so that we don't have to upload those things every single time we go to use them. And finally, we need something that allows our team to collaborate. So has that project management built into it. So I'm not copying or uploading docs from the system that writes with AI over into my project management system on a different site like ClickUp. All I have to do is click and select whatever document it is from a drop down, and it automatically embeds or lists it on the task. So that's what we did. We created all of those things and connected them within this system. So we have an AI prompts list, a dashboard, a funder library, a funding tracker, a grant archive, a grant generator, a grant readiness assessment section, a grant report section, a grant tracker, meeting notes, and it's built in with AI, so it takes it for you, non-grant funds tracker, organizational documents, overhead tracker, research library for everything that you would want to put in a statement of need to back up your claims, staff library, so it has their bios, their resumes, and any of their demographics, standard grant narrative, and a task tracker. And this system uses these things right here to make it all related. So we have pages, databases with tagging, database views embedded in pages, automations, calculations for those budgets and things like the funding strategy, filters, and custom built widgets. Plus, AI is layered over top of all of that. So AI has access to every single thing you put in there within its closed system so that you can ask it to do or create anything just based on this information. Now, when Stephanie first mapped that out, so Stephanie's my teammate, it looked like this. It's kind of hard to understand, but I wanted to show you how we mapped this out and how you can sit down to think about all the components you need. Of course, you can start with the list that we've given you here of what we created, but I want you to take that list and build upon it and see what else you might need and how you would like it all to fit together. So, for example, we built this for one nonprofit and they ended up needing to have multiple mini hubs within our larger hub because they have different departments that do different types of scientific research. So they didn't need to all be integrated together, but they needed to join back together in a central hub. So think about what you need, map it out in this way. So she figured out what all contributes to organization knowledge management, what contributes to drafting the grants with AI, what is the life cycle of a grant in the hub, and what does the grant management process look like? So how do we get things, once the grant is awarded, boom, it goes into the grant archive and something is created under the grant reporting. So how do we get all that to fit together? So let me show you just a few examples of how these work together, and they're not all separate folders that don't relate. So the organizational docs is the key part of the organization knowledge management, as is the standard grant narrative. Then we have the grant readiness assessment, the funders and the grant tracker. Anytime a grant is put in the grant tracker, it creates a funder page where you can keep all the notes about that funder relationship and any other info you want there. The research library that feeds into the standard grant narrative. The organizational docs also feed into the standard grant narrative. The staff info feeds into the standard grant narrative. And the meeting notes can feed into the standard grant narrative as well. So for example, what this looks like, our standard grant narrative has little embedded views of databases in it so that when we're talking about our policies and practices, this is putting a little view of our database in here where you can click on any one of these and read the DEI statement. And also when you update the DEI statement in the organizational docs section, it just automatically updates it here. So you're never working with multiple drafts of things. When it comes to grant strategy and pipeline management, we have the new grant tracker entry as the key step that creates all of these different things. It creates a new set of tasks in the task tracker. It creates a line item it adds money to the funding strategy, what we have planned to request. And it starts a new grant in the grant generator that gives you everything you need to write the grant with AI. It's also linked to these things over here.
Now let's take a look at our
Oops, I wanted to do that video, but I want to make sure first everybody can hear that. Can everybody hear that? My volume is supposed to be turned on for this window. So let me know in the chat if you can hear. I just turned it on and turned it off real quick. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Now let's take a look at our funding tracker here in the funding strategy section. The funding tracker helps you monitor your progress towards funding goals for each program. It allows you to divide your funding request into program funds and overhead costs. If you work with a lot of grants where you're managing overhead costs or have a NICRA that you need to take into consideration, you'll see here we've got some program categories for our funding categories. We also have categories like general operating, capacity building, and technical assistance. We see the minimum required. We have what we plan to request, what's pending, what's been secured in non-grant funds, what's been secured in grant funds, and the total that we've secured completely, along with need to request and need to secure. All of this information is being taken into account in our little funding progress bar here, so you can see exactly where you are in funding all of your programs at a glance. This funding tracking system includes a non-grant funds tracker as well. If you have donations or fundraisers or sub-awards that you work with that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at your funding strategy, all of that can be managed here.
So I'll stop there as you kind of get an idea of how these things feed into one another to help you overall track your strategy. And you can build all of this yourself just with databases in Notion if you know a little bit about calculations. But I'm going to show you how to get it set up here in a second. Then we have the grant generator. So the grant generator is where you go to write the grants. It pulls from all of these different elements here. Also, you can set it up each time you use it, each prompt individually. If you want it to access all of the internet, it will. So let me show you an example of
This is the
that.
space where the grant writing magic happens. We are going to work in this Thriving Communities grant today. This is for the Norfolk Southern Corporation. We have AI prompts for specific project types listed here. So because this is listed as a small grant, we have specific prompts for this project type. And then down here, what I have is an outline of the requirements for this grant based on the funders. I have a prompt here that I am going to ask AI about. So I'm going to highlight a section and I'll read through this prompt while the AI is thinking. I have said to Notion AI, please draft a project description for the socio-emotional learning program that addresses each of these bullet points. Consult the Norfolk Southern Corporation funder page for information about the funder's priorities and show how our work aligns with theirs. Provide evidence for your claims and give parenthetical citations for any sources that you use. Please make your response between 400 and 500 words. Here is what it has drafted for me. We have the project description and the purpose and need. It's describing the program as we have it described in that program home base. The activity and timeline is again based on that program home base. We have the target population, which is based on information from the standard grant narrative and the program home base. And we have the focus area alignment. And here we can see it is referencing, it'll show these little Notion icons here. And usually it'll have a little pop-up to show you which pages it's referencing. So then I can say insert below. And there we go. Now let's see how well it did with the word count. Notion does have limited ability to do word and character counts, so we built a little widget here. So I can paste this in here at 391 words, so a little bit under what I asked, but definitely within the right range.
All right, so I will stop that there. And move on to this next step, which is the task tracker. So this pulls info from the grant tracker, your staff list, grant reports, and relates to your AI meeting notes. And anytime you create a grant, it populates it with tasks based on when that grant is due. So tasks and subtasks. So another great feature. Now, if you want to start building your own AI grants system, I want you to either take a picture of this, or my teammate Hannah is going to put in the chat the link for this handout. It's an 18-page handout that I made for you that takes you step by step through getting the initial parts of this set up specifically in Notion. All right, Hannah's put the link in. Thank you, Hannah. And let's get right into it. So how to build this system. First, you're going to prepare your materials. A lot of you might already have these, but a lot of people don't have these organized, and they don't know which year some of them are for, if they're the most up-to-date documents. So this is really important. So we do this grant readiness assessment process, and we go through these 4 categories of information: legal registrations, financial systems and materials, internal documentation, and organizational capacity. Now, I give you a list again on that handout of what all that includes, like making sure you know your EIN, making sure you're registered with a Secretary of State or Attorney General. Make sure you have your grants.gov login, your sam.gov, your UEI, all of those things. Making sure you have your annual org budget. Next, you're going to outline your standard grant narrative. So there are two parts to this for us. There's the main section that talks about your organization as a whole, and then there are individual program home bases. So what this looks like is here is what is included in the main section. So links to your program home bases, a list, actually a little table of all of your basic info about your org, then multiple versions of your mission statement, depending upon what you want to, or not the mission statement, but one mission statement, then multiple versions of your organizational history, depending upon what you want to focus on, and depending upon length. So we've got a 100-word, a 200-word, 500-word version. Then a description of your organizational capacity. A few steps ago, I showed you this how there were embedded policies and practices and things linked in here. So if you see a link right here, that means we've got an embedded database right there as well. So you can embed a little database view pointing back to your board of directors list. So it just pre-populates that for you. Your board demographics, how you select board members, your organization staff demographics, policies and practices, a description of your organizational capacity, beneficiaries, and a very broad overview of your services. I like to do like a 1-paragraph description of each program right there. Then we have separate program home bases. We used to do it all in one space. Now we have it separate. It makes it much easier for the AI to reference. So in this section, we have a little embedded database of all the relevant grants for that program. So you never have to go back to that back to that database or search through a bunch of folders and be like, which grant did we do for this program that I can reference? No, it's right there. We have separate statements of need for each of your programs. We have a program overview, theory of change, goals and objectives, methods and activities, all the standard stuff. Impact, sustainability, monitoring, evaluation, individual program budgets, a risk analysis, and a logic model. Okay, again, this list of things is all in your handout. The next thing you're going to want to do is gather and organize your past 3 years of grant narratives. Depending upon your organization, this can be a lot, but we like to have the past 3 years as a point of reference put within the grant archive. If you don't want to do that step, you can skip it and just do the standard grant narrative, but we like to have that history in there because you never know what you may need to reference and go back and look at. I just wanted to make this handout as accessible as possible. I know Hannah has put the link here, but here it is again. If you want to snap a picture of the QR code on your phone and open it up, there it is again. The next thing you're going to do is set up your platform. So like I said, we use Notion and recommend it over other options that have some similar affordances like Evernote, Obsidian, Mem. You'll notice these 3 are called note-taking apps, but they all have AI integrated. And also Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft Copilot came in second to Notion AI. It just doesn't have the same capabilities and organizational structure. So here's why we chose AI. Notion AI offers a completely integrated workspace where all of these grant-related components connect seamlessly. So unlike traditional document storage or like Microsoft Copilot, where you have things stored in different places and it's kind of disjointed, it centralizes your entire process into one cohesive system. It's also context aware. So it can intelligently pull from every relevant document in your hub when drafting proposals, eliminating the need to explain your organization from scratch each time, unlike with standalone AI tools like ChatGPT. It also really excels at teamwork features, so something that some of those other ones don't, allowing you to assign tasks to team members, designate point persons, edit documents together with comments and suggestions, just like on Google Docs. You can also invite guests for free, which I cannot tell you how major that is, to give them free, like unlimited access to everything you've created, especially when you're working with clients and they don't have to have that full membership. It's also really good at improving organization, centralizing your document management, reducing duplication of effort, and the learning curve, I think, is not as steep as some of these other softwares that I mentioned, as well as even like standalone grant writing with AI softwares. Now, if you want to get Notion, it's only $20 per user per month for all of this. Another reason I love it, it gives you so much more for the value, or so much more value for the price than something like ChatGPT, which if you get ChatGPT Plus is also $20 a month. So you get your account, you set up your team space. So there will be a little team spaces section over on the left-hand side. You click on the three dots and hit new team space, that easy. Then you add 3 empty pages and 14 databases. All that means is you click empty page 3 times and empty database. You go back there and do it 14 times to have all of the pages that I was telling you about. So all of the ones here in orange, those are databases, and these 2 are pages. The only thing is the dashboard has a lot of database views embedded within it, but you create it as a page. Again, this list is in the handout, so you can just open your Notion account and make this yourself. Next, you're going to upload, organize, and tag your materials. So in the organizational documents database, you'll create a new row. You'll hit plus, create a new row. You'll click on that row right here, and then you just drag and drop your document in there, name it, and then you can say which category it falls under. So for example, legal status or finances, again, these are listed in the template. You list what year it was for, and then the status of it. So is it current? Does it need to be updated, or is it just missing? In that case, you wouldn't upload anything. You would just type in whatever it was, like your IRS determination letter, and mark it missing. Oh, hope you don't have that missing. Then you're going to go in and build your grant archive. So just another blank database. And you're going to upload your old grant applications, whether they were awarded or not. And you're going to put each of these columns on your tracker, just like building a spreadsheet. Grant application, funder, date submitted, program, focus title, status, requested amount, grant tracker, grant reports. Now later, you're going to build relationships between these things and other elements. But just to get started, I just wanted to show you these things are linked to other parts and under other database columns or rows so that it doesn't just stand alone. It actually works with other systems. Next, you're going to copy and paste your standard grant narrative outline. So I gave you that template in the handout back in section 1. And that's going to be in just a page, a blank page. And then you'll do the same for your grant readiness assessment. We like to have that as a separate document in there. And then everything we gathered through that assessment, we upload the org docs into another template. So each of these docs are just one row on this database, or you can think of it as a spreadsheet. We categorize them by type, year, relevant status, irrelevant date, and status. And we've put all the little tags in here for you so you can mimic that for yourself. And then we take our AI prompts and we build another database. So each prompt is a line on this database. And we give you a bunch of prompts in your handout. So we have prompts for processing NOFOs, drafting the app, revising the app, and editing the app. Again, there's the link to the handout.
This is the space where
Then you can use that content. Sorry, I was trying to pause that.
This is the space where the grant writer.
Then you can use all of that content plus AI to draft your grants, just as Stephanie showed you in that video earlier. Now, I know we only have a few minutes left, and I knew this was going to be an extra thing, but I also want to tell you, you can use this system to search for grants with AI. All you have to do is either reference your standard grant narrative, or what we do to keep it concise, we create an organization profile. The template for this, again, is in your handout. We put all of this info in it. and then we search using the AI within Notion. And you can do this from any page in Notion. There's a little guy in the bottom right corner. Mine has a pencil because I added that, but he doesn't have a pencil normally. You can customize it. And then it says, what are we sketching out first? Well, I go on here and I say, select all sources, and that allows it to access the internet. And then I put in this AI prompt and I say, use our organization profile to conduct a grant search for my organization. I tell it how to do it. Again, you can copy and paste this prompt from the handout, and it's going to do a grant search for you. And it's going to give you a bit of evaluation as well, even if you didn't ask for it. All right, so I hope that 18-page handout can get you started. If you can build an Excel spreadsheet and a doc with some hyperlinks in it, you can build this in Notion. Now, all of the widgets and calculations and relations and things take more time to develop, but this is a great starting point to getting everything into one usable space. So if you want a system like this, follow the model we've laid out and DIY it. That's totally free. I also just want to mention that we do have a template in Notion on the Notion Marketplace. If you want to pop that link, Hannah, in the chat to learn more about the AI Grants Hub and get that template. And then option 3 is you can get it for free right now when you join Grant Writing Made Easier, which is $600 a year or $60 a month. The other option that's a lot more pricey, where we develop all of the materials, the writing, and everything that goes in it. We do the grant search and strategy ourselves. We do that for clients. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me after this. My contact info is on that grant handout. But I'm hoping that with what I've given you here, you can do this and start working on this for yourself, or at least start thinking about how to better systematize what you do inside of a system that implements AI. Hannah has also put a link to join our free grant writer community, where there are over, I forget now, Hannah, 2,300, 2,400 people in there, as well as a bunch of free trainings that teach you the basics of using AI to write grants and search for grants. All right, that was a lot. Somebody did have a question about security. Notion has a security page, privacy policy page that you can check out. Basically, everything that's in there stays in there. Nobody else looks at it. It took us a year and a half to build and perfect this system, and we continue to still upgrade it. But if using a pre-made template, the pre-made template that we have, you can get all of this set up within a couple of days, depending upon how organized your documents are. Like if you're looking for things that you can't find, that makes it harder. But you can set all of this up in just a couple of days with the template. But doing it yourself, I would say it would take a couple of weeks or more if you need to learn how to use Notion, how to build formulas and things like that for some of the more advanced features that we have. Thank you. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to reach out to me after the fact again if you want to learn more, or just join our free grant writer community where we share info like this and do lives. And also Hannah put her link in her email as well in the chat. All right, thank you so much, everybody. I'm excited. I hope to see some of you in the free grant writer community.